Hey, good morning, Inspire at Random. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my manifestation journey, what I've gotten out of manifestation. So you may have found your way to this video because you're looking into putting more time into this lifestyle adjustment known as manifestation. It's a new way of life, it's a new way of thinking. And well, you're just kind of like sitting on the fence and wanted to hear from someone who has been through it. So today's video is not going to be about any particular program. Of course, I've been through a few. You may have also seen my other video reviewing The Art of Manifestation by Regan Hillier. A good program, by the way, but before that I've also been through Quantum Jumping by Bert Goldman, The Silva Method by Vishen Lakhiani, and ever since then I've also looked into other things such as Neville Goddard books. Those are good. In more recent times, looked at Louise Hay, Dolores Cannon, and Bob Proctor. This journey has definitely been very worth it. That's why I continue to constantly add new things into the mixture of this whole personal journey. In order for you to properly appreciate how far I've come along, I want to share with you where I was coming from. 18 months ago, I was in a toxic relationship. By the way, I have a blog post right here, private blog post, just to help keep me on track. I was a victim of narcissistic abuse. I was in a toxic relationship 18 months ago with my ex-wife, basically. I had a low self-image. I beat myself up. I had no confidence. Obviously, I wasn't talking like this. And it was a vicious cycle. She was constantly taking out her frustrations and anger and gaslighting at me. I had to take it out at someone else. So at the time, I resorted to cyberbullying and road rage. Not too proud of that. Also eating comfort foods that made me worse, low energy, and fat. I also drank a bit alcoholism, but not major alcoholism, just to take my mind off things, which was quite often because that was also costly. I joined into groups of enablers, people that weren't really friends or anything, just people at the bar. So you can say that kind of like commune with degens where I could get free booze. So the net result is I lacked sleep, I had perpetual fatigue, I had an unsatisfying life, and my social circle was crap. So the best manifestation is being able to take my life back. My ex-wife moved out a few months ago. That's freedom for me, my daughter, my pets, and this is freedom from the loud noises and negativity. All this was because I was able to first see a possibility of a better life in my head before it became manifest. And at this point, I want to define for you what manifestation means for me. To manifest is to make what is not yet evidenced into a reality that can be perceived by people outside of ourselves. I'm going to say that once again. To manifest is to make what is not yet evidenced into a reality that can be perceived by people outside of ourselves. Coming back to this, simply having freedom wasn't the answer. Because it's like giving a beggar a sword, but he's still not going to be able to use it to increase his survival chances or to defend himself in a crossfire, let's say a war. Because firstly, this beggar must have the strength and the skill to wield this weapon, or else it just becomes a dead weight. This is what manifestation has been able to help me do. Now I'm in the best shape of my life. I would never imagine that I would even be fitter than I was at 18. I'm actually 40 right now. I'm lean and I've hit a body weight that I've never been able to achieve even in the prime of my life, and I've achieved this without crash dieting or substance abuse. I don't even mean pre-workout supplements or stimulants, just none of those, all natural. Taking back my life also means the ability to consciously decide. For many years, I lived in a trance. This trance was contributed to by the whisperings of negativity around me from my ex-spouse. And anyone out here who's been a victim of narcissistic abuse will know that a narcissist will cut you off from your support system of people and things and then go hot and cold on you to keep you on a trauma bond. That was me. Looking back, I cannot imagine how helpless I once was. If I could make a metaphor of this, I guess manifestation was able to put in me a system reformat and a new software with deep learning capabilities. I was a sacrificial lamb. I put everyone's needs ahead of my own. As my income fell through my down period, my wife's expenditure took a growing portion of whatever income or money there was, because she had minimum life standards to be kept up. She felt it was necessary to get new clothes, shoes, bags every month and takeout food. Anywhere in the world, thinks about the cost of takeout food versus home cooked food. I really wonder why I let myself and my kids put up with that. But just so you know, my solution back then was to just keep cutting my life standards. I went from beef to pork, from pork to chicken, and from fillets, I went to buying chicken carcass and pork bone from the grocer because those were the cheapest and there was remnant meat on it. For someone who once earned 5 to 6 figures a month pre-COVID, I really wondered how I landed myself in such a state that I would even be keenly sensitive to grocery price fluctuations, and I developed an understanding of saving via coupon stubs. The abuse I put up with at home, I also put up with at work. Maybe I was so used to being this Bobo doll that was being kicked and punched around that I was also metaphorically being kicked and punched around at work as well. Since early COVID, after my previous business failed, I took up an internship position, and this went on for like 3 years. I was overworked and I was underpaid. Since then, I'm glad to say that I have become a working partner in the same company. Due to my personal development, particularly in a few instances of talking back to the boss, although it was quite awkward back then, and negotiating better compensation, work hours, working conditions, I have increasingly been given decision-making responsibilities. Now I also get to spearhead my own projects. Needless to say, my concept of money has changed a lot. I've kicked this dumb rainy day money habit. This idea does not really serve. Bob Proctor from The Secret movie, he ever talked about a certain Mr. Chapman who lived like a vagabond down his street, but he actually had over $100,000 saved up in tins in his house, which he never got to spend. These days, I treat myself well. I celebrate my mini wins. Even with debts outstanding, I do pamper myself from time to time with a good tiramisu, a good meal, a good haircut. Well, this is just wake up hair, okay? And I'm actually preparing this for a perm next week. You'll see it. So I know some of you talk about my hair, but yeah, anyways. And new accessories as well, which let me know that I'm becoming the change I once visualized. I learned that a scarcity mind gets you nowhere. On the other hand, it doesn't cost an arm and a leg to live well. I've since manifested wealth several times from multiple avenues, and once even an amount of $28,000, and I've since opened myself up to possibilities of manifesting more money. And it's interesting how it seems so random that I hear prompts of, if you would like to have this, just go ahead, spend the money today. Tomorrow will be solved tomorrow. I'll give you some examples. Bizarre things happen, like people hitting me up to return a favor, return a debt, or payment for work services that was defaulted like ions ago suddenly came back to me. Strange things like class action suits by the FTC against companies that I bought products from in the past, and then compensation was quietly sent back to me via PayPal. So I could sometimes open my PayPal, I was like, where did this $1,000 come from? Where did this few $100s come from? And that's been happening the past months. A few days ago, I also promised to help a good friend with his kids' tuition fees, but he required slightly more as there was a fine print. And likewise, I had some unforeseen expenses too, and what he asked for became a bit of a stretch for my budgeting. Something prompted me to tell him, can this be tomorrow? I'll figure something out. The last thing I wanted to do was to take out some money from the copy trading I had on Binance that was doing well for me lately. When the next morning came, two things. Crypto crashed further. And because the guy I was copying was shorting on leverage, he actually made a huge gain on a tiny account. That alone would have more than provided for the extra amount that my friend asked for. But that's not it. I also found that I had received a $400 government handout for cost of living increases. I keep getting these nice synchronicities. I'm also very tuned in on angel numbers these days, which is how the spiritual world likes to send messages to us in this world. I'll show you something here. Isn't it so wonderful and serendipitous that when I parked my car this morning, I looked at the numbers on the dash. 222.2. Not only have I broken the hypnosis of lack and broke, I've also tuned my mind for blessings and better things in the lack of evidence. I've been able to live knowing that the blessings will be there. After all, the consciousness or awareness we have is dependent on the lens to life we use, which is thoughts and beliefs. The better we think, the better we see, identify, experience, better opportunities, etc. Earlier in this video, I talked about how I had sunken into being like a has-been. Has-been is like we are thinking about, oh, I used to be this, I used to be that. Doesn't really affect, doesn't really help, doesn't really serve. I used to be seeing people doing well, and I either feel spiteful, jealous, or I'll be self-hating. I would say things like, it's for them, not for me. Almost as though the successful me never existed. Manifestation allowed me to get in touch with my higher self, the version of me that had already succeeded in all these things, who is abundant and wonderfully blessed, loves people and the world, and is loved by others. Yesterday, my daughter raved about the new house her favorite YouTuber and her husband bought. It cost nearly 1.5 million US dollars. She also spent another 1 million US dollars on renovations and furnishings. The old helpless me would have thought, good for for her. Probably want to get miserable with a tall can or two of extra strength stout beer after my daughter falls asleep. But instead, I said, show me their faces, I want to see. And it was like, okay, great. If they can do it, certainly I can do it. And thank you for showing me this. My dream house is definitely a very reasonable idea in comparison, and it will be done. I knew that the shift had already happened because I don't think in the same way as I used to. You must have heard someone say, one should never talk about, I can't afford it. Instead, you should say, how can I afford it? But that's not so easy for many people. However, nowadays, whenever there is something that costs X amount of money, I never say that I can't afford it. I just realized yesterday, I have been able to think of how or what kind of time frames that I can afford stuff with ideas and inspirations to back it up. Business-wise, having a different mindset has opened much possibility to me as well. For things that I would have once thought, that can't be right, that's not going to work, probably fake, I started to have a lot more faith and optimism and instead see how certain projects can be feasible, and this has led me to new realizations that more than justify how these work requests and opportunities aren't just too good to be true. I would like to add, 6 months ago, I wouldn't have had this much to say. Part of me back then used to think, I can manifest fitness, but why can't I manifest money? A lot of this, and you are going to encounter this along your journey, so I'm telling you right now. A lot of this has to do with being on the right frequency. Maybe you can see the physical gains. I mean, we're all very pragmatic, right? The mental gains up here take a bit more time, but these gains, they do build upon themselves. That's one advice that I want to give you. Without being on the right frequency, how can one hear the right signals? And that's been very true. I feel that as part of this manifestation journey, God has put me on quite the adventure to teach me to tune in on all the required levels. By being on higher levels of vibration, I've met many individuals, and so many doors have opened up. All these add to the evidence in my life that I once lacked and helped me go from a degenerate to a growth mindset and work towards higher and higher goals. So if you have any questions about the story that you'd like to hear more about, or just some quick questions, whatever, you're more than welcome to ask me in the comments down below. I'd love to be able to be a part of helping you tune certain thoughts in getting your manifestation done in the best way possible for you. Thank you.